Good morning, Mrs. Anna. Please take a seat and make yourself comfortable because I understand that coming to a lawyer's office can sometimes feel stressful, and my goal today is to listen carefully to you and help you understand your situation clearly and calmly.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I really appreciate that because I have been feeling very confused and worried for many days, and I did not know whom to talk to before deciding to come here.
That is completely normal, and you do not need to feel embarrassed or nervous because many people come to me feeling the same way. So please take your time and tell me everything from the beginning in your own words.
All right, I will try to explain it slowly because the problem started almost 2 years ago when my husband and I began having serious disagreements about our family property and financial responsibilities.
I see. And it is good that you mentioned the time period because details like that are important. So please continue and tell me what kind of disagreements you were facing at that time.
At first, the arguments were small and mostly about daily expenses, but later they became bigger, especially after his business started losing money, and he began blaming me for things that were not really my fault.
That must have been emotionally difficult for you, especially if you felt you were being blamed unfairly. And I want you to know that your feelings are important in this process.
Yes, it was very difficult because I was also working and supporting the family, but he did not seem to recognize my efforts, and that made me feel very lonely inside my own home.
I understand. And emotional stress often goes hand in hand with legal problems, so it is important that we look at both aspects carefully and patiently.
The situation became worse when he decided to sell a piece of land that was in both of our names, without clearly informing me or asking for my full agreement.
That is a serious matter, Mrs. Anna, and I'm glad you brought it up, because property that is jointly owned usually requires consent from both parties, depending on the law.
That is exactly why I came here, because I felt something was not right, but I did not understand my legal rights, and I was afraid of making a mistake.
You did the right thing by seeking legal advice instead of acting out of fear, because understanding your rights is the first step toward protecting yourself.
Thank you for saying that, because many people told me to just stay quiet and accept the situation, but deep inside, I felt that I deserved clarity and fairness.
You absolutely deserve clarity and fairness, and the law exists to protect people in situations like this. So now, let me ask you a few simple questions to understand the full picture.
Yes, please go ahead, and I will answer honestly.
Can you tell me whether the land was purchased after your marriage and whether both of your names appear clearly on the legal documents?
Yes, the land was purchased after our marriage, and both our names are written on the deed, which I have kept safely at home.
That information is very helpful because it strengthens your position, and it means that any sale without your proper consent could be legally challenged.
Hearing that already makes me feel a little relieved because I was worried that I had no power in this situation.
You do have power, Mrs. Anna, but it must be used wisely and patiently because legal processes take time and careful planning.
I understand that, and I am ready to be patient because what matters most to me is protecting my future and my children's stability.
That is a very responsible way of thinking. And speaking of your children, could you tell me how many children you have and how old they are?
I have two children. One is 12 years old and the other is 8, and they have been affected emotionally by the tension at home.
I am sorry to hear that, and children's well-being is always an important consideration in legal matters involving families, so we will keep that in mind as we move forward.
Thank you, because my biggest fear is that this conflict will harm them in ways I cannot fix later.
Your concern shows that you are a caring parent, and the law also recognizes the importance of protecting children from unnecessary harm.
That gives me some hope because lately I have been feeling like everything is out of my control.
It may feel that way now, but step by step we can bring structure and direction to this situation, starting with understanding your legal options clearly.
I would really like that because I feel tired of living with uncertainty every single day.
Then let us take this one step at a time
And in our next part of the discussion, I will explain your possible legal options in simple terms so you can decide what feels right for you. Now that we have talked about your situation and I understand the background clearly, I would like to explain your legal options in a very simple way so you do not feel confused or overwhelmed by difficult words.
I would really appreciate that because legal language often sounds complicated to me, and I want to understand everything before making any decisions.
That is a very wise approach because when you understand your options clearly, you feel more confident and less afraid, which helps you make better choices for yourself and your family.
Yes, that is exactly how I feel, because fear has been controlling my thoughts for a long time, and I want to move forward with clarity instead of fear.
First, I want to tell you that you have the right to ask for full information about the land sale, including whether any agreement was signed, whether money has already been exchanged, and whether the buyer was informed about your ownership.
I do not think the buyer knows about my involvement because everything was done secretly, and that secrecy is what made me feel something was very wrong.
Secrecy in such matters is often a warning sign, and the law usually does not support actions taken without transparency, especially when joint property is involved.
Hearing that makes me feel stronger inside, because for months I felt like my voice did not matter at all.
Your voice does matter, Mrs. Anna, and one possible option is to send a formal legal notice, which is simply a written letter that clearly states your rights and your objections.
That sounds serious, but also a little frightening because I worry it might make the situation at home worse.
That concern is understandable, and that is why legal notices are written carefully and respectfully, not to threaten, but to inform and protect your position calmly.
If it can protect me without creating unnecessary conflict, then I would consider it.
Another option is to request mediation, which means both of you sit with a neutral person who helps guide the conversation toward a fair solution without going to court.
I like the idea of mediation because I still hope we can solve things peacefully, especially for the sake of our children.
That shows maturity and kindness, and courts often appreciate when people try peaceful solutions before choosing legal battles.
But what if he refuses to cooperate or ignores the mediation process completely?
If that happens, then you still have the option to approach the court and ask for an order to stop the sale until your rights are properly considered.
So the court can actually stop the sale if it is unfair.
Yes, the court can issue a temporary order to pause the transaction, especially when there is clear evidence that one party's rights are being ignored.
That makes me feel relieved because I was afraid everything would be finalized before I could do anything.
Timing is important, which is why taking early action is often helpful, even if the final solution takes time.
I see now that waiting silently was only increasing my stress and uncertainty.
Exactly, and taking action does not mean you are creating trouble, but rather that you are standing up for fairness and clarity.
I like the way you explain it because it helps me feel less guilty about protecting myself.
There is no reason to feel guilty for protecting your legal rights, especially when you are also thinking about your children's future.
That is true because my children depend on me to make responsible decisions, even when those decisions are difficult.
Now, let me also explain the financial side in simple terms, because legal processes can involve costs, and it's important to be prepared.
Yes, I was worried about that because my income is limited and I cannot afford endless legal expenses.
That is a valid concern, and many cases can be handled step by step, starting with low-cost options like notices and mediation before moving to more expensive procedures.
That approach sounds reasonable and less frightening.
We always aim to solve matters efficiently because the goal is resolution, not prolonged conflict.
That makes me feel calmer hearing that because I was imagining long court cases that would drain me emotionally and financially.
Court is usually the last option, not the first, and many disputes are resolved before reaching that stage.
That gives me hope that this situation does not have to destroy everything.
Hope is important, but it should be balanced with preparation so you are ready for any outcome.
I understand, and I'm willing to prepare myself emotionally and mentally for what lies ahead.
In the next part of our discussion, we will talk about documentation, emotional stress, and how to protect yourself during this process so you feel supported and informed.
Now, before we finish our discussion today, I want to talk about the importance of documents and personal care, because legal strength comes not only from the law, but also from how well you protect yourself emotionally and practically.
I am glad you mentioned that because lately I have felt mentally exhausted, and sometimes I worry that stress might make me forget important things.
That is very common in situations like yours, which is why I always advise clients to keep copies of all important documents in one safe place, including property deeds, marriage certificates, bank records, and any written communication related to the issue.
I do have most of those documents at home, but I think I will organize them properly now because I realize how important they are.
That would be a very good step, and I also suggest keeping digital copies, if possible, so you feel more secure and prepared.
Yes, that makes sense, because having things organized already makes me feel a little lighter inside.
That feeling of control is important, because legal matters can move slowly, and during that time, your emotional well-being matters just as much as the outcome.
I agree, because I have been losing sleep, and sometimes I feel guilty for feeling tired, as if I should be stronger all the time.
You are allowed to feel tired, Mrs. Anna, because strength does not mean never feeling weak, but continuing forward even when things feel heavy.
Hearing that helps me more than you might think, because I have been carrying this burden quietly for a long time.
You do not have to carry it alone anymore, because now you have information, guidance, and a clear path forward.
I truly feel different compared to when I walked into your office today, because my mind feels calmer and more focused.
That is exactly what a first legal consultation should do, which is replace confusion with clarity and fear with understanding.
I feel more confident now, and I believe I can face whatever comes next with patience and dignity.
That confidence will help you greatly, especially when conversations at home become difficult, because you will know your rights and limits.
I will try to remain calm and respectful, even if emotions rise, because I want to handle this in the best way possible.
That approach will benefit you and your children, and it will also reflect well if the matter ever reaches mediation or court.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because sometimes emotions make us forget the bigger picture.
Before we end, I want to reassure you once more that taking legal advice does not mean you are breaking your family, but rather that you are protecting fairness and stability.
That reassurance means a lot to me because deep inside I only want peace and security, not conflict.
And that intention will guide your decisions wisely as long as you continue to act thoughtfully and patiently.
I am grateful for your time, your explanations, and your kindness, because today I felt heard and respected.
You are very welcome, Mrs. Anna, and remember that you can always reach out if you need further guidance or clarification.
I will, and I feel comforted knowing support is available if I need it.
Take care of yourself, focus on your children, and take things one step at a time, because progress often happens quietly and steadily.
I will do that, and I am leaving today with hope instead of fear.
That is a good place to start, and I wish you strength, patience, and clarity as you move forward.
Thank you once again, Mr. Daniel, for everything.
You are welcome, Mrs. Anna, and I wish you all the best.